You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama and Tennessee syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, sometimes the international. And oh, yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to it. You're in a new week. It's Meatloaf Monday. Thank you very much. I got a sound effect for that. Hit it, man.
I think I'll try the meatloaf sandwich.
Do you know what that is?
Yes, meatloaf.
What is it? I'm only asking in case I have to describe it later to a doctor.
Look, it's nutritious. It's delicious.
Made out of meat. Add ketchup if you want. I couldn't care less.
Meatloaf Monday. All right, welcome to it. Every one of y'all are hungry now, and hopefully you're hungry for some good information. But welcome to Meatloaf Monday. That is JP pushing buttons on the board. War Eagle.
Roll
I
Tide.
knew you'd do that. I got him on in there first. That's just awful.
Hey, it was a great game.
All I know is, let's just say, flagrant was not called.
I don't know what you're talking about.
It got called on Auburn, though, didn't it?
Seemed clean to me. I don't know what you're talking about.
Clean. Clean. All right, so buzzer beater on IBOB 2 in overtime. I got to be honest, if that's the way a 1 versus 2 game is going to go, then it went the way it was supposed to go. But I still would have liked to see the buzzer go in the other direction.
I predict we'll get a round 3 in the SEC championship.
I predict you are correct.
It's written in the stars, obviously.
Yep, I will not underestimate anything, but that was an epic game.
It was the game we deserved.
Well put.
Yes, there you go.
It was the game you really, really wanted to. All right, listen, we got a great show laid on for you. 3 o'clock today, State Representative Ernie Yarbrough coming on. Ernie Yarbrough, I love it when that guy comes on. He has got such a passion for conservatism and for the Constitution and for patriotism. So we're going to talk to State Representative Ernie Yarbrough about some bills he's got right now in front of the Alabama legislature to help protect and advance our Second Amendment rights. So, yep, that's coming up at 3 o'clock. State Rep Ernie Yarbrough, and then I still got a triple dipper just filled up with stuff, so hit it.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. First out the gate, oh yeah, looking around the region, looking around where we are. Where's our listening areas? Okay, what's happening in our backyard? You know the deal. I got to, every once in a while, cook up a batch of home fries. So yes, we are. We're going to talk about things that are happening in Alabama and Tennessee and maybe in surrounding regions. Yes, indeedy, going to talk about stuff in our backyard, the home fries, number 1 on Triple Dipper. Number 2, I didn't get to it Friday, so my plan is to get to it today. Will the DOE die? Will the Department of Education die off? Is it going away? Are we going to see it gone? Is the federal morass, the big bureaucracy, the bloated department that actually does nothing for the United States in terms of education, is it going to go away? I don't know. We'll talk about it. Will the DOE die? That's number 2 on the Triple Dipper. And then number 3, have you seen what's happening with Columbia University in the last few days? Friday and Saturday, epic, so glad. We're going to talk about the cure for the campus madness, the campus where, you know, anti-Semitism was okay, and you could be an activist, radical student and not have any responsibility or accountability. Awesome. Well, not no mo. There's a new sheriff in town. The cure for the campus madness, we'll talk about that, is number 3 on the Triple Dipper. All right, well, let me jump on into the Right Side Way opening monologue. I'll remind you guys that attorney Stan McDonald is the partner at the Wilmer and Lee in Huntsville. He is also a 30-year veteran in the practice of law, and Stan McDonald, he is, in fact, the daily sponsor of the Right Side Way monologue, and I'll tell you more about him in just a few minutes. All right, well, listen, I make no bones about the fact that I'm a Christian. I love the Lord. I believe that Jesus is Lord and that no man comes to the Father except through him. It's real to me. It's more than my faith. It's about a real lasting relationship with a God who loves me in spite of myself. And because of that, I'm inclined to want to know about what happens with Christians worldwide. I mean, I care. I have an affinity for them because we share the common bond of the faith. Well, this past weekend, a tragedy began unfolding that bears some discussion, some prayer. Really, it bears some outrage because Christians are being massacred right now in Syria. It is wholesale slaughter, y'all, and the world is largely remaining silent. Charlene showed me a video yesterday of radical Islamists herding Syrian Christians into piles in pickup trucks. And they were mocked, their faces were slapped, many have been beheaded, raped, their homes pillaged, their church burned. Reports indicate that coordinated attacks took place in Syria's regions where Christians and Alawite communities have historically lived. Armed groups of Islamist factions stormed villages, leaving death and destruction in their wake. Men, women, and children were executed, homes were torched, churches were desecrated. Just in one night this past weekend in Syria, 340 innocent people were killed for the simple fact that they were Christians. Eyewitness accounts describe harrowing scenes of terror and entire families gunned down, children burned alive, priests slaughtered at the altar. And yet, despite the scale of the tragedy, the world seems like, amazingly indifferent. There have been no emergency UN Security Council meetings, no mass demonstrations in Western capitals, barely a mention from a major news outlet. Christian persecution by Muslims in the Middle East has reached genocidal levels in recent years, with ISIS conducting mass executions against Christian communities. And the attacks in Syria, well, they follow the same pattern of terror that we've been seeing in places like Iraq and Egypt and Nigeria and other regions dominated by radical Islamists. Over 4,000 Christians were killed for their faith in Nigeria in 2024 alone. Records kept by World Watch indicate that nearly 15,000 churches and Christian properties were attacked in 2024. But I can also turn my attention to the overtly anti-Semitic protests that have been allowed right here in the U.S. at college campuses, especially in some of our elite universities, like at Columbia University in New York. Jewish students have been openly harassed, impeded from their education, threatened. Calls for intifada on campus, violent takeovers of buildings, vandalism. They've all gone largely unaddressed by the administrations who seem to turn a blind eye. But this week, though, President Trump announced he was ending over $400 million in grants to Columbia, and ICE agents actually went on campus and detained a radical Middle Eastern student who'd been organizing the anti-Jew rallies, and he now faces deportation. Well, it's about time. Finally, somebody's taken action. We shouldn't have to wait, though, until the government gets involved. Because what's really missing in all this, and what is needed more than ever, is for good people to speak up. I mean, like really speak up. Throughout history, it is the failure of good people to speak that has allowed bad things to happen. Don't get me wrong, I mean, bad actors do bear responsibility for what they do, but good people who could have intervened and chose not to because it was just uncomfortable, because it was scary, because it might hurt their business or their standing in the community, or because they just shrugged their shoulders and said, well, it's not my problem. Well, they deserve some recompense themselves. You've all heard the quote, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. So true. But think about this. What if it was you that was bearing the brunt of the actions of the bad actors? What if it was you or your family facing some kind of adverse action or public backlash, unjustified consequences, or maybe actual planned genocide? Who would speak for you? There's a wonderful, sobering old poem by a German Lutheran minister named Martin Niemöller. Let me read it to you. It says this. It says, first they came for the socialists, but I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. See, Niemöller was a minister in Germany in the 30s and 40s. He watched what the Nazis did, and at the end of World War II, he wrote that poem as a lament. He was crestfallen when he realized that by not speaking, maybe he was complicit. But Niemöller also had some extended commentary on it. This is what really got me. He spoke in the form of a question, really a confession. And I wouldn't normally do this, but let me just read to you what Niemöller said about that statements he made after World War II. He said this, quote, "We preferred to keep silent, and we are certainly not without guilt or fault, and I ask myself again and again, what would have happened if in the year 1933 or 34, there must have been a possibility," he said, if 14,000 Protestant pastors and all Protestant communities in Germany had defended the truth until their own deaths. If we had said back then that it's not right when Hermann Göring simply put 100,000 communists in the concentration camp to let them die, I can imagine then that perhaps 30 to 40,000 Protestant Christians might have had their head cut off. But I can also imagine that we would have rescued 30 to 40 million people, because that's what it's costing us now. See, in Niemöller's view, the price of staying silent wound up being greater than the price of speaking up. But speaking up, well, that takes practice. It does. It really does. Think about resolve and courage as if they are a muscle group. If I left them untrained, then they grow flaccid and weak. It takes exercising your resolve and your courage to be able to be effective at employing them. So just do this one simple exercise. Ask yourself, what would I say if? Think about it. Find that thing you care about and say, what would I say if? Take a little time to think about the answer. Maybe read up on the comments by other folks who do a good job addressing that thing. Ask a friend or a family member, and then just dialogue it in your own mind. Turn the radio off while you're driving and ask yourself, what would I say if that thing I care about went badly? One of my favorite authors happens to be from Alabama. It's a guy named Andy Andrews. He's also one of the best public speakers I've ever heard. Amazing personal story. But he wrote a book that I have on Rightside Radio's website right now called How Do You Kill 11 Million People? Referring again to the Nazi extermination camps, there's a quote from Andy Andrews which is right on point for this discussion today. He said this, he said, quote, "Every man of character will have that character questioned, and every man of honor and courage will be faced with unjust criticism, but never forget that unjust criticism has no impact whatsoever on the truth. The only sure way to avoid criticism is to do nothing and be nothing." So yeah, what would you say if? Look, you don't have to be famous. You don't have to be well educated. You don't have to be an elected official or a business leader. Acts chapter 4 in the Bible, Peter and John spoke to the leaders of that day, and it says they were noted as speaking with authority even though they were, quote, unlearned and uneducated men. So yes, resolve and courage, those are things that become part of your character. You will be known for them, or you can also easily be known for being without them. Just a thought. Or you could just do nothing, say nothing, and when they come for you, who will speak for you? The bottom line here is that Christians and Jews are being persecuted, murdered right now. And in Syria, it is reaching epic proportions. Do we need the government to speak up? Sure. But what we also really need is for good people to find their resolve, their courage, and speak up themselves. Otherwise, the day may come when there's no one left to speak for you. And that's a wrap for the Rightside Way. Yeah, check out the stories right now. Just type in to your Google search engine, Syrian Christians persecuted. And you'll be amazed at the stories you're not hearing in the regular news cycle, because they're gross and they're awful and they're about Christians, which means they probably don't get reported that often. But they need to, and people need to speak up. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Saving the world one soundbite at a time. Bunch of y'all are texting in already, and I'm glad of it. So 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text it or call it. Same number for both. We want your input. Thank you to all y'all who already kicked right in. Hey, by the way, I got to remind you guys, attorney Stan McDonald, he's the daily sponsor of the Rightside Way monologue. So, yeah, Stan McDonald at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee out of Huntsville. He's a 30-year veteran in the practice of law in the North Alabama area. And not only will Stan advocate and fight for your legal needs, but let me just tell you, I know him personally. Stan McDonald has been like a warrior. He's like an OG Rightside ruffian for years on the things that we care about politically and culturally right here in our own communities. So look, attorney Stan McDonald, he has represented his clients in literally thousands of real estate transactions over the years. He knows how to represent you in every local, state, and federal court. I like to say if Stan McDonald's on your side, you will have no greater friend, and likewise, your opponent would have no greater foe. So here's his phone number. I'm about to give it to you. Ready? You want to call an attorney. You need one in North Alabama. Stan McDonald, a law firm of Wilmer and Lee. He's an America First family man, and here's his phone number, 256-479-3020. That's Stan McDonald, 256-479-3020. And do me a favor, tell him you heard about it on Rightside Radio. And no representation made. The quality legal service be formed is graded quality legal service for all lawyers. Ha. War Eagle.
You just throw that one in there.
I did. Let me get a few text messages here. Hey, there's Junebug. We met Junebug Friday night. How awesome was that?
We did.
Junebug,
Cool.
it was awesome to see you too. She says, it was so nice to meet you, the lovely Charlene and JP Friday night. Charlene truly is lovely. I agree. Thank you very much. Thank you for your monologue today. I have felt helpless as I've watched the videos you referred to concerning Christians in Syria. I'm praying for Christians and Jews around the world. And the quote from Niemöller has moved me to action of the past, even if it was to pray more fervently. We certainly need to speak up and move to action as these atrocities are occurring. Thank you, Junebug, and you are so correct. And yes, it was awesome to meet you in person. So thank you for being there at that Kirk Cameron event we had in Gadsden Friday. John from Huntsville says, Phil, fantastic monologue. Also, have you heard that the stock market's taking a big tumble today? By the way, JP, he's all over the board today, man. JP, Alabama's most likely going to lose in the SEC. John, don't listen. Don't get out there smack talking yet.
Hey, well, he's assuming Kentucky's going to win their game. I don't even know that.
There you go. Okay, got the bracket in his head right now. Thanks, John. Jeff Rowe from Indiana. I am happy to announce the birth of my last granddaughter and my son's last daughter, born this morning at 10:30 a.m. 6 pounds 2 ounces. Maisie. That is awesome, Jeff Rowe. Lord bless that child to grow strong and healthy and free from any harm or injury or illness or infirmity, to know you as their Savior, and thank you. And I pray that the family does well. Bless you, Jeff. Appreciate you, man. He also says, by the way, Phil, in a sane world, all radical Muslims will be designated terrorists because anyone who can do this to their fellow human being and say it is in the name of a religion is a terrorist. No exemptions. Strong, man.
Yeah, no, it's obviously Christians are involved in it, but Alawites, which are Muslims, like, what happened to the Muslim Brotherhood? Why aren't the Muslims speaking out against this? It's amazing to me. The lack of coverage is all it's getting. It's
I need to go back and look at Alawites. Are they definitely Muslim?
They're a Shia minority, I think, in
Are they?
in Syria. Yeah, so it's not just Christians. I mean, the Muslim world is being silent too with their own.
It's basically, you don't believe what I believe, therefore I shall behead you. That's what it boils down to. Meanwhile, coexist bumper stickers make everybody feel better. Stop it. Al from Athens says, good afternoon, Phil. Great monologue. Thank you, sir. Did you see the video of the transgender anti-Christian singer Bernie Sanders had at his anti-Trump rally this past weekend? It was unbelievable. I did see it. It was gross. I don't even want to talk about it on the air because it's offensive. It was absolutely heretical. It was disgraceful. And Bernie Sanders is a disgrace to his office. How about that? Do I have strong feelings? Yes, I do. Al, thanks for the text. More of this. We get back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. Hey, all you right side ruffians out there, you are listening to Right Side Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Man, covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. Whew. Goes from Huntsville all the way back over to Chattanooga. And I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. I mean all the way down to that prettiest little town on the plains called Auburn and over to Fort Benning. Yes, I called it Fort Benning. And oh, by the way, big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. I got a few more text messages. I also got to tell you, too, if you're having trouble streaming the show today on X, Twitter, so's the rest of the world. There's a story. We've been noticing today it's been really jacked up at just trying to get things done on Twitter. I couldn't get my usual morning drive post and other things done. And so, yeah, story up on Fox News right now. Elon Musk says that X has been facing a massive cyber attack today. He said, this is a quote from Musk, he says, "We get attacked every day, but this was done with a lot of resources. Either a large coordinated group or a country is involved, and we're tracing it." So yeah, they had periodic outages throughout the day. They'd get them fixed. It would go down again. No more details than that. But if you're having trouble watching us on Twitter right now or X, you can always stream the show live if you're one of our streamers by going to our website, rightsidemedia.org, or going to our Facebook, or excuse me, our YouTube page or Facebook. I said Facebook. Yeah. So check those out.
Yeah, right now we got a good amount of people watching on both X's, but if those go out at any point during the show, which may be likely today, yeah, go check out our website and such, like he said.
Awesome. Okay. All right. Well, let's hope that they get it under control. It's amazing to me that this is happening because we're watching, like, just because he's working with Trump, all of a sudden there's Tesla dealerships being attacked. I mean, he was the darling of the left's world. He builds electric cars. He's so cool. That was what, 3 years ago? And now all of a sudden he bought Twitter. He likes Trump. He's helping cut waste in government. No more big money for, LGBTQIA plus drag queen story hours in England. And anyway, the left is so out of control right now. A few more text messages and I'll jump into my topic. Britt from Athens, in regards to my monologue, says, "I use the Niemöller quote when I teach the Holocaust, but also in my church lessons. It's important to stand up for what's right. Be passive and bad stuff seeps in." You nailed it, Britt. Thank you for that. Thank you for the fact that you teach it. Bruce from Springville says, "Staying silent against persecution, even dealing with one-on-one bullying, a person is actually choosing who their God is. Choose this day who you serve, God or bullying." Wow. Thanks, Bruce. Allie from Athens saying, "Outstanding monologue, Colonel Williams. Unfortunately, this kind of behavior is so much more common than anybody wants to admit because it doesn't fit the narrative of Islam as a religion of peace. Thank you for telling it like it is, and may we have the courage of Dietrich Bonhoeffer and stand for the truth irrespective of the price." Awesome, Allie. Thank you. I know you do. Missy from Faultville says, "Thank you, Brother Phil, for bringing attention to Christians being murdered for simply believing in God. It's as if Revelation is playing out in front of our eyes." Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And it's every day. John C. from Madison says, "Your show may even reach into North or South Carolina. You never know." I do never know, but it's possible. Thank you very much. Gary from Decatur says, "Bernie Sanders' term in the Senate ends in 2031. That means the people from Vermont elected an 83-year-old communist for 6 more years. This political hack has never had a job in his entire adult life. How do the people in Vermont think the country got in this mess?" Oh, Gary, you asked one of the most confounding questions that can be asked. All right, listen, we got a thing we do once in a while where I look around the region, look around the backyard, look around what's happening in our state legislatures. Look at what's happening right here in and among us, because sometimes, y'all, what happens locally and what happens in your state can impact your life even more than what happens in D.C. or at the UN or wherever else. So that when I do that, I gather up a few things you might want to know about in your backyard, and I call it a batch of home fries. Oh, yeah, just cooking them up, cooking them. All right, here's one for you. Nothing like watching the Biden administration throw money out the window, right? Apparently, just under the wire, in January, just before Trump took office. Right here in Alabama, 1819 News reports today the University of Alabama at Birmingham, UAB, received a large federal grant to study, wait for it, what could it be, JP? What do you think it is? What are we studying? Just guess.
Probably something ridiculous and wasteful.
Okay, that's fair. Structural racism in childhood cancer care. Because, yes, there are people who say, I won't treat them because of their skin color. And it happens every day.
I didn't know to go with climate or LGBTQ or what, but that right there, cross difference.
Racism would have been on the list though. Mm-hmm. But structural racism in childhood cancer care, I'm not sure you would have patterned that one because you have to really dig for that kind of thing.
Yeah, you got to really reach for that.
You do. The Department of Health and Human Services awarded UAB a $661,845 grant in January of this year for, quote, unpacking structural racism in the quality of end-of-life care for children with cancer. That's about as niche as you can get. It's also ridiculous. Explaining the observed racial and ethnic disparities in quality of end-of-life care among children with cancer is what the grant will do if the study does not even end, get this, until 2029. So here's what I want to know. Since Trump has now implemented his anti-DEI policies, but the grant has already gone out, do they still get to do the DEI type studies through 2029, or do they have to stop it now and send back the money? What do you think?
I would hope they would stop it now, but...
And send back the money?
Not going to happen, probably.
Probably not. Probably not. Your tax dollars at work. Here's one from Yellowhammer. Not to ever let a near crisis, or for that matter, a falsehood go to waste. Democrats got all up in arms this weekend. This past weekend was the anniversary of Bloody Sunday. This was the gathering at the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, the landmark moment in time when the civil rights movement basically splashed its way even greater onto the world stage, right here in Alabama. Well, there's a Freedom Rider Museum, and you may know the Freedom Riders. The Freedom Riders were folks who rode in on buses oftentimes to join in the protests here in the South. And the Freedom Riders Museum, which is in the historic Montgomery bus station, was apparently on a to-be-closed list by DOJ. Now listen, DOJ is a broad brush. DOJ gives you all the things it sees without going into the intimate details, and then it's up to the government to go, well, okay, not this one, but yes, that one. But there was what's called a non-core list of federal properties that the General Services Administration maintains that do cost us money, and the Freedom Riders Museum and the Montgomery bus station, which are civil rights monuments in Montgomery, Alabama, were due to be potentially closed because they were no longer on the core list. Well, Hakeem Jeffries, House Minority Leader of New York, he just went totally partisan on it. All kinds of misinformation and demonization of the issue. And Yellowhammer News here reports that Senator Katie Britt got immediately involved, good for her, called the administration and said, y'all got to fix this. And she said, I've been in communication with the administration. This has been resolved. It has been taken off of the non-core list. We're not losing those museum sites. Good for her. That's exact. Listen, you know what? She fixed it over the weekend. You notice that? That issue came up. Hakeem Jeffries tried to make political hay out of it and just abuse the ability to have a microphone. And Katie Britt just picked up the phone and fixed it. Good for her.
And it's like Elon's even said it. We're going to make mistakes. But at least he goes back and fixes them instead of, the left doubling down on their mistakes.
He's the sledgehammer, not the scalpel.
Yeah.
He's the one who's in there, cracking things open. And then the administration gets to look at it and go, well, yeah, like I said, yes, this, but not that. It also points out this is an example of what we might call malicious compliance.
Yeah.
Malicious compliance, that thing where you say that, well, you watch me now, I'm going to do something and make you feel bad for having made me do this. And you may remember that it was actually Katie Britt again, who worked with Secretary of Defense Hegseth about making sure Tuskegee Airmen's history was taught at the Air Force Academy because someone had maliciously complied. And no one ever said take that. We want the Montgomery bus station. We want the Tuskegee Airmen to be taught. I mean, that's just history. That's also honorable history. And it's our history. Democrats are out of their minds, man. They're out of their ever-loving minds. They have nothing else to scream at except racism.
And I'd rather Elon go in like a bull in a china shop and then go back and make the fixes instead of not doing anything because he's too careful. And he's actually fixing the mistakes, may I add. Like, he's not just saying, oh, we'll go, like he's actually going back and fixing the stuff.
In fact, it's not in my stack here right now, but in that vein, USAID, was shut down. And most of it, I believe, was folded up under the State Department. Secretary of Defense, or State Rubio said either last night or this morning that they have gone through and looked at it. 85% of what was found is being left in a turned off position, but 15% of those expenses will go to programs they believe they still have to continue, and they'll rekindle those. That's what they're doing. They're doing a case-by-case review. Why would we not want government to do that? That's just called stewardship. I'm getting fired up. Let's look north for a minute. Nashville, Tennessee. Well up yonder in the volunteer state, they got ahead of us. Dadgummit. Tennessee Senate passed a bill last Thursday, according to WBIR out of Nashville. Tennessee State Senate passed a bill last Thursday requiring schools across the state to create policies that prohibit students from having their phones or other wireless communication devices during educational time. In other words, don't be bringing your smartphone to class. Subject to seizure. And paddling? No, probably not.
Probably not.
Did they do paddling at your school when you were growing up?
No.
Oh, my gosh. Your generation. I don't understand.
No, there was no physical discipline from teachers growing up for me.
Have mercy. It was always the coaches. They just send you to see coach. Not me. Never happened to me. I never got paddled.
I'm sure.
There may have been other disciplines, but I never suffered that one. Coaches used to take some kind of strange pleasure. Just like they'd have the special paddles with like a name on it, like the Terminator, and it would have holes drilled in it so they could swing it faster. It's like, good Lord.
I'm sure they'd be thrown in jail for life if they did that now.
Probably. Have some mom down there threatening with her phone out. Anyway, speaking of phones, this bill, it's a Senate bill, or it's going to be House Bill 0932. Representative Rebecca Alexander, who's a Republican out of Jonesboro, she introduced the bill in the House. It generally prohibits, according to the article here from WBIR, any wireless communication devices. It also requires schools to include language that says that they can use them with special permissions from teachers. I don't know how they're going to do this. Kids leave them in their cars. Kids have a special, like a locker, like, when I was at the Pentagon, everybody had a little locked cubby where you put your phones before you went into the office, the skiff where I worked. I don't know what they'll do. But one of the representatives said he supported the bill and believed it would help with better mental health outcomes for students. All said and done, I think this is great. I think it's good. And I say more of it. How much time have I got here? I tell you what, let's take a break right now. Take a break right now, JP. And we'll come right back and cook up some more home fries. And don't forget, coming top of the hour, State Rep Ernie Yarbrough. He's got some good stuff on tap. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. I'm saying making common sense like a superpower. And I'm going to go to the phones in just a minute, but I got to tell you another thing that's happening right now in the Alabama legislature. They're in session. They're actually on a break this week, taking a cycle break, but they'll be back in session next week. But they've been working on some anti-illegal immigration bills, several of which have already passed the House. So just let you know, I love the idea that we're addressing this, because I was a part of an effort myself when I was in the state Senate to pass anti-illegal immigration. Much of that bill is still in place that we passed back in 2011 or 12. But they got some new stuff going on that I think is really good. House Bill 302 would regulate labor brokers recruiting foreign workers. In other words, these people who are sending busloads of people to work in Sylacauga or wherever else we found them showing up in parking lots, that would be regulated and should be. House Bill 304 by State Rep Jamie Keel would allow the impoundment of vehicles that are being operated by people illegally without valid driver's licenses. And it does not mean that if you forget your license, you're going to have your vehicle impounded. We're talking about illegals. State Rep Tim Wadsworth opposed that bill, though, but he's the only Republican that voted against it. It passed overwhelmingly otherwise. We got House Bill 3 by State Rep Chip Brown. It mandates enhanced sentencing for illegal aliens convicted of felonies against minors. In other words, it would upgrade. If you did something to a minor that would have been a Class C felony, it would move it to a B or an A because you're an illegal alien, because you already have a strike against you, in his words. Love that. And then we got those three bills are moving to the Senate. We got a couple more that are still coming, one of which I think is really, really important. And this is House Bill 297 by State Rep Fiddler. Her bill would impose a 4% wire transfer fee on money transfers from Alabama. In other words, all those remittances that illegal aliens come here and work and send money back to their home countries, like the $63 billion a year that goes back to Mexico, those would be taxed at 4%. And that, my friends, is how you fix stuff. Anyway, that's all going on right now on the Home Fries section. Let me go to the phones real quick. Wolverine Dan's on the line. Hey, buddy, how are you?
Well, I'm doing quite well. I think we all need to understand that we're going to have some down times as far as the economy, and also investments and retirement. It's affecting our portfolios. But the bigger picture is this. I believe that our president's doing the correct thing. Everything has to be addressed. USA ID, obviously there's some fraud in there, wasteful spending. You served us well in Washington, D.C., and you know as well as I do, if this stuff doesn't get addressed, Phil, it's going to come to a head at one time, and we're not going to be able to do anything. We're going to be stuck. And it'll be terrible for our grandchildren. So I'm willing to lose some money right now, or whatever I have to do to make it right, because we're on the other side of the mountain, or at least I know I am. And I want my grandkids to do well and be well. And if we don't catch this and stop this now, Phil, we're doomed.
Well, I would agree. And so you're referring back to the Doge stuff I talked about a little while ago. Yeah. The reality is, if we don't get a grip on it, then not only are we wrong for future generations, but we're also not good stewards of what we have while we have it. And that's absolutely antithetical to common sense. So I agree. Got to get a grip on it now.
That's biblical, Phil.
Absolutely.
Good stewards of our not only ourselves, but for others and this country. Yes. Absolutely.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate the call, man. Take care.
See you.
A couple more minutes, and don't forget, by the way, coming up here top of the hour, we'll bring in State Representative Ernie Yarborough, talk about some Second Amendment bills he's got going on right now down yonder in Montgomery. This is out of Tennessee. And by the way, talk about some clickbait titling. So Local 13 News wants you to know that there's a Tennessee bill that could allow healthcare providers to deny treatment. Okay, what are we talking about? No, we're not. It's a Medical Ethics Defense Act. Pray tell, what would that mean? It would mean that if you are a medical practitioner and someone asks you to, A, perform an abortion, or B, administer gender transition therapies or surgeries for that matter, and these go against your faith, You don't have to do it. You can't work for a hospital and have the big hospital association mandate you do it. Your corporate medical providers cannot mandate their physicians in Tennessee would have to do it. Well, this headline is it would prohibit healthcare providers from being required to participate. How about this? It would allow healthcare providers to participate, not to have to participate in or pay. It's really how you want to word this, right? But Tennessee is on the money with this. It did pass the Senate. It now goes to the House. Doctors are like everybody else. Medical practitioners, like everybody else. They should not be required to go against their religious beliefs just because they work for a big corporation that could care less about kids or abortion or whatever else. All right, coming up next, State Rep Ernie Yarbrough coming on in, talk about some Second Amendment. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama and Tennessee syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, sometimes the international, and oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 2 on a Meatloaf Monday. Meatloaf Monday. Everybody's hungry now. But hey, listen, we're going to keep going here. I'm cooking up a batch of what we like to call home fries. Oh yeah, cook them up, sizzling in the pan. So we're cooking up home fries, which means things that are happening around about where we are, right here in the region, or our listening areas. And listen, there's somebody who's been on the show multiple times. In fact, he's even guest hosted the show for me on several occasions. Ernie Yarbrough is a state representative representing District 7 right here in the Alabama House of Representatives. He's a solid constitutionalist. He's a well-known conservative, hails out of the Lawrence County region. And listen, I'm going to bring him on right now because he's got some good stuff going on in the Alabama legislature. State Rep Ernie Yarbrough, how are you doing?
Brother, I am doing fantastic. It's a beautiful day. Got the windows open in my new house we just moved into up in my office. It's a blue sky, the birds are singing, and the legislature is out this week, so Alabama is a little bit safer.
I feel like we ought to be singing Zippity Doo-Dah after that introduction. That's pretty good.
That's right. All I need is a bluebird on my shoulder.
Hey, man, listen, y'all are on a cycle break this week. I agree. The state is always safer when the legislature's not in session, and I can say that because I've seen it firsthand. But you've got some good bills, and listen, there are some good things come out of Montgomery, and some of the stuff you've been carrying really is. And I want to dig into a few of these. People might want to know about having a Second Amendment holiday. So what is HB 277, House Bill 277 you've got?
Yes, sir. So what led to me filing, I'll just back up for a second, 3 pro-gun bills is that, when you get like 13 pieces of gun legislation and it's all like, concern, not good, double not good, concern. It's like, wait a minute, what's in Alabama? We need gun legislation that isn't bad or borderline. Like, we need gun legislation that's like, hoorah, let's go. This is Alabama, right? And so that was kind of the context of. So the first bill we got that you mentioned, 2A holiday, I actually saw that Governor DeSantis had tied that into his Florida, I think either a bill or a budget line item request, something of that nature. And so the concept there is called 2A holiday. So the name came to mind. I didn't want to copy Governor DeSantis' name, and so I Doc Holiday, Tombstone kind of came to mind. So I'm your holiday or whatever. So no, 2A holiday. The concept there is that from Memorial Day to July 4th, we would have a state sales tax holiday on guns, ammo, and hunting supplies.
Wow.
And so that's the concept behind it. That's obviously, hey, this is part of who we are. It's a big part of who we are, not just for hunting, as great as hunting is, but it helps keep us free. So we wanted to put that out there to be like, hey, we're going to celebrate, we're going to reward, drive, incentivize this kind of behavior for our generation, and obviously to pass it down to our kids.
That's huge, man. And it's such a contrast to places more liberal policies like I think it's Seattle, where a few years ago they instituted a local tax on bullets, trying to basically tax people out of their Second Amendment rights. It's 5 cents per bullet. It's just nuts. So you're proposing then that people could buy guns, ammo, and even accessories maybe for a sales tax holiday.
There's a whole list of hunting supplies. Yeah, and the state sales tax holiday, Memorial Day to July 4th, and then local, they can opt in if they want to. They don't have to. Once you get into some of the local taxes, obviously that can be a little bit more finicky with with what all the local needs are and how they depend on some of that stuff. But at least the state sales tax. I mean, our budgets have doubled in the last 7, 8, 9, 10 years, whatever it is. So the figure we ought to be able to make some room for incentivizing some freedom-loving Alabamians to go get some guns, ammo, hunting supplies, and carry on the love of hunting and self-defense.
Yeah, I'm digging that. I mean, like let's say for instance you buy a $700 shotgun, and which it's a good shotgun, but if you buy a $700 shotgun, you're looking at like $35 off that shotgun if you buy it during a sales tax holiday, just on the sales tax from the state alone.
Right.
That's
Yeah. And so if you're going to go ahead and buy something for Christmas, then why not go ahead and get load up on it now? And as you can imagine, when I reached out to,
Did you say load up on it? Was that a pun?
it was. Man, those years are working great. Go ahead and put it in your mag shopping cart. No, and so I obviously ran this by several local small business gun dealerships. And as shocker, they loved it. So and not just because obviously they want to sell more and make more money, but also because these people that do this, and a lot of times it's tied into athletic gear. They sell stuff at local high schools. They believe in that freedom and want to promote it.
All right, I'm digging it. Where is it right now? Is it still in committee?
Yes, it's still in committee. I think they're waiting to see. There's all this discussion about various tax bills that are going to drop and what to do with the state overtime tax and other tax considerations for investment and business property and different things. And so I think we're kind of waiting to see where, in terms of getting an overall fiscal idea of the ramifications of it, and looking at surrounding states to see what the budget numbers were when they did something similar to this. We're kind of waiting to see where we're waiting on. I think this month we'll get a clear picture. But I think this month it's perceived that this month all of the tax cut legislation will land.
Yeah.
And then they'll figure out from there what path they want to go forward and try to rope in hopefully as many pieces as we can.
All right. Well, let me dig into, before we run out of time, let me get a couple more, because you got at least three bills right now that deal with the Second Amendment. One of them is HB 408. That's the burden of proof bill. So how does this one work for you? Me being a lawyer, I immediately key in on the legal aspect of burden of proof. What do you got there?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm calling the HB 408 the Stand Your Ground Innocence Act. Very simply, the concept here is kind of prevents a Kyle Rittenhouse type of situation. So if you exercise the lawful authority and lethal force to defend yourself, your family, whatever the scenario is, then what HB 408 does is it shifts the burden of proof away from you to the state. So you really are presumed innocent. And so the concept here is that what 408 does is it sets up like a pre-trial showing or hearing, and there has to be a clear and convincing evidence that the defendant's use was unreasonable for it to even go forward. And if it's not clear and convincing, the judge dismisses it, and it never even goes to trial.
Wow.
So that way, the idea there is that what happens here is that people can't use trumped up charges as a way to financially destroy somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and we're going to get into that moment with red flags, but I assume this bill 408 about shifting the burden of proof is in House Judiciary. Is that where it is?
That's correct. 408 and 409 are both in House Judiciary, and so which we have another bill, the Lake and Raleigh Act, which we filed actually that bill before even Senator Britt had that last year. I think we had that. We saw a bill in Georgia, and that one's passed out of public Homeland Security and is in Judy now. But yes, 408 and 409 will also be in Judy, and we'll see if we can get some traction this month on those.
Well, listen, man, you're coming in from all angles on the Second Amendment here, and I love this. But I think one of the most important ones you've got is, and to me, one of the sneakiest ways that liberals can try to get at your Second Amendment rights is your House Bill 409 on red flag laws. I've spoken about those multiple times. Red flag laws give me red flags in themselves. What's your bill do?
Yeah, so what it basically does in a nutshell is it bans red flag laws. So for those that don't know, red flag laws, if something's a red flag, like, whoa, wait a minute, what's that? Something's concerning there, right? Well, basically what a red flag law is they're also known as extreme risk protection orders. So they're gun laws that give judges the authority to command the temporary seizure of somebody's arms, right, if they're deemed a threat to themselves or others. Problem is that we already have laws. Banning red flag laws has already been passed by multiple states, the most recent of which I believe is Wyoming, because the problem is that we already have a process whereby someone, if they're declared unfit, mentally, whatever, they go before a judge. There's well understood and defined processes for that. And part of the issue is that, obviously, and rightly so, people don't trust government. And so, these kinds of laws come up where they create extra ways to, and ideas to seize people's guns which obviously can be a very dangerous path to go down. I would argue in large part because we don't follow what the Bible says as we should. Ecclesiastes chapter 8 and verse 11 says that because sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily, therefore the heart of the sons of men is fully set in them to do evil. So if we're, the best prevention against gun violence and evilness and crimes is to bring swift and severe punishment. And when we don't do that, or we see in the news where so-and-so gets executed after 35 years on death row or something, people commit these crimes because, number one, is problems with gun-free zones. And so criminals go to gun-free zones because they know there's nobody armed there. But there's also because we don't punish crime. And so the solution to ending crime is not more gun laws, more stuff that is only going to affect people who already buy guns legally anyway. The best way to defend or to stop crime is to promote and celebrate the lawful ownership of self-defense and to bring swift and severe punishment to people who break those laws. Because until you do that, like G.K. Chesterton said, if man will not live by the 10 Commandments, if man will not have the 10, he must have the 10,000.
Wow. G.K. Chesterton always nails it, like within about one sentence. He would have been a Twitter master with, so few words. He could have just nailed it.
Elon would be the one person that would be Elon's number one follower would be GK. but I just feel like 277, 408, 409, we need gun bills that are obvious and open celebrations of the Second Amendment so that people feel passionate and empowered to get behind this legislation and to get behind the concept of responsible, God-fearing, freedom-loving, patriotic-toting Second Amendment citizenship. Because let's just face it, we all know why, as the famous Japanese commander said, why they didn't invade America, because there's a gun behind every blade of grass. And the way that you stop the explosion of crime is not through a nanny state. It's not through those who are, as C.S. Lewis said, I'm not afraid of tyrants. I'd be more afraid of infinite busybodies who actually believe in the good cause of bringing salvation through legislation, right? What we need is the simple and plain enforcement of righteous justice and the celebration of what is good and the owning of the means and training of self-defense, and the problem goes away.
Man, I love having you on the show. I feel like about half a dozen times when you're talking, I think, I wish I'd said that. And I am now going to say no salvation through legislation on a regular basis, but I have to give you the credit for it.
That's right. Hey, that's all right. You know what? If you take it from one person, they say it's plagiarism. You take it from many, it's just research. I'm sure I didn't come up with that through reading. So you can just say after much research, you've come to the conclusion, and then just follow with the statement.
Fair enough. All right, man. Go fight the good cause. Enjoy your next few days off from the legislative wranglings, and then head down to the House floor and get some business done, buddy.
Yes, sir. You can count on it. Thank you, brother.
All right. See you, man. That's State Representative Ernie Yarbrough from District 7 up in northwest Alabama near the Shoals area. He just has a way with words. He has a great way with words. No salvation through legislation. That's brand new in my lexicon. Just going to say. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll wrap up Home Fries right after this. Y'all stay tuned. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Man, pulling pins on truth grenades in here. That's what we're doing. Several text messages I'll get to momentarily, but let me just go ahead and jump back into some home fries. Cook me up some home fries, JP. Cook them up. Cook them up. Frying in the pan. Hey, by the way, home fries. This is special for JP. It was just noted in the last 45 to 50 minutes that Auburn basketball coach Bruce Pearl has been named as the SEC Coach of the Year. Thank you.
As he should have.
Can I have some applause? I'd like you to do the applause for us, JP. Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, my God. We got to bring in some church discipline sometime soon. The elder's going to have to meet and talk about you a little bit.
I'm sure he would have traded the Coach of the Year to win the last game, though. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, my gosh. Anyway, yep, congratulations, Coach Bruce Pearl, who I'm noticing that because it was Coach Tommy Tuberville that sent the congratulations on Twitter, so that's cool. There's that. And then I got a couple other things. By the way, I don't know what this means, like what the job would even really entail. You may remember Lindy Blanchard. She ran for governor of Alabama. She was the former Trump-appointed ambassador to Slovenia, which you look at and go, Slovenia? Where is that? Well, that's actually where Melania Trump is from. So anyway, she was the former Trump ambassador to Slovenia. She just received an appointment by the Trump administration to be the new Food and Agricultural Organization representative to the United Nations. I don't know what that even does. It says it's an agency that fights, worldwide hunger and operates offices in over 130 countries. So she's going to be the U.S. rep for that. And it just kind of feels like, we don't know what else to give her, so let's give her that. I don't know. But she's thanking him for it, and Trump's celebrating her. So yay, go get her done. Lindy Blanchard, staying in the fray. And then a couple more, just so you know. And in fact, I may skip that one, but this one right here I got from Alabama Reflector. Remember them? Alabama Reflector. I'd forgotten about them, to be honest with you. But it's notoriously liberal, but hey, every once in a while they get a story, blind squirrel with a nut. But the Alabama Reflector had a piece just a couple of weeks ago. I mentioned it a moment ago when Ernie Yarbrough was on the phone. He has another bill called House Bill 7. It's part of the illegal immigration package. He has been told it is a priority bill and it should be moving here pretty quick when they get back from the break. But House Bill 7 by Ernie Yarbrough, it would also give sheriff's deputies and police officers the authority to arrest and detain individuals not authorized to be in the U.S. In other words, illegal immigration is a federal crime. You can't usually arrest on that basis alone. There has to be some call it inchoate crime, something else that's wrapped in, like maybe they violate a state law and then you find out they're here illegally. In this case, it would allow that to be the sole basis for detention by a state or local law enforcement officer if his bill passes. What it basically does is it gives them a chance to arrest somebody who maybe had something small like a traffic ticket, or you swept them up in the middle of something else, or they just happen to not have any ID and then you begin to realize they were illegal and you can detain them, local law enforcement, and then immediately call ICE and let them get picked up. It just basically lets the locals have a say and a participation point that they don't have right now. I like that bill. I like that bill lots. All right, I got some text messages and all, and when we get back, we're going to jump into the next one. Will the Department of Education die? Will it? Long, lingering death maybe, but I think it's possible that it's going to at least wind down. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Right, just, like, man, covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A, y'all. I'm saying, man, this show goes from Huntsville back over to Chattanooga and all the way from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden and all the way down to that prettiest little town on the plains called Auburn, stretching across the border to Fort Benning. Yes, indeed, it's called Fort Benning. And oh, by the way, big old patches of Georgia and Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. It is rolling off the tongue now. You see that? That was just like enjoyable.
Second nature.
That's right. It's right. Hey, by the way, this is totally not on my list. Hey, JP.
What's up?
Do you see they're taking apart Black Lives Matter Plaza in Washington, D.C.?
As we speak.
Can I have some whoop-whoops or some applause or something? Just give me something. Maybe a laugh track while you're at it. How about that, too? That's awesome. Black Lives Matter Plaza is now going to be gone in D.C. It never should have been there in the first place. And listen, I mean, that's not a reflection on whether Black lives matter. I can freely say, and I don't care what anybody says about it, that all lives matter. But the whole idea that an organization that was, helping to orchestrate riots across the nation and then defrauding people out of money on a regular basis and spending it on mansions for themselves and then becoming nothing more than an activist organization, got an entire street of our nation's capital, very near the White House, named Black Lives Matter Plaza and had it painted in giant letters on the street. How about no? How about stop? How about don't ever do that again? Maybe something ought to have some honor and notoriety attached to it, maybe a little history attached to it. They did that. By the way, that's a key example of why government should never be knee-jerk, JP. Knee-jerk government is never good government. Never. Now, I mean, I understand that when I say knee-jerk, I'm not talking about stepping in an emergency, like FEMA showing up to help with a crisis or, whatever. But kneeling with an organization and kowtowing to them and then changing whole street names and plaza names and designating buildings and everything else after this organization, which then later on to prove to be a bunch of charlatans and frauds and hucksters and race baiters.
Yeah, I would say this is not a statement, like you said, against Black Lives. I think it's against the organization Black Lives Matter,
yes,
which is a racist organization against white people, very much so. I mean, the head of it just recently, I think it was late last year, early this year, talked about how maybe they need to go on the offensive against white people. And it's like,
just like, what a ridiculous thing to say. So yes, I think you're right. I think it's taking it apart, taking down Black Lives Matter Plaza is definitely, as to the organization itself. I think it's also, like I said a moment ago, it's basically dealing with the idea of knee-jerk government, because that's all this is. It was knee-jerk government. It was, how can we kowtow? How can we show how woke we are? What's our virtue signal? What do? I know. Let's rename an entire street after it and then make it a crime if somebody dares to try and run over the letters. I mean, for the love. Stop it now. There's that. That was like an entire just rabbit trail. Text messages. David from Madison says, when the government issues a contract to a company or an entity for whatever reason, 9 times out of 10, they write a clause into the contract that allows the government to terminate the contract for a multitude of different reasons. I would agree. I've seen that in federal contracting, certainly. One of those reasons is termination for convenience of the government. So this should allow the current administration or DOJ to terminate these contracts for basic convenience to the government. So in other words, they shouldn't have a leg to stand on. He's talking about the UAB grant. So if you missed that part of the show earlier, I said at the beginning of Home Fries that the University of Alabama, Birmingham got a $660,000 grant right at the last days of the Biden administration, just before Trump took office, to study what? Oh, how about systemic racism in the treatment of pediatric cancer patients? Like, what? Or is it structural? Structural racism. What's the difference in structural racism and systemic racism? Same thing, right?
It's just being fancy with words.
Okay. Structural racism.
Trying to sound smart when you're really saying something really idiotic.
When you're really giving away DEI money. Yeah. So, yeah, David, thank you for that. And I agree. I think there's going to be a clawback provision. That's one of the things we instituted when I was in state government. We instituted what we call clawback provisions in things like economic development and others. If you have government contracts or incentives and you don't meet certain standards or milestones, then we have clawback provisions in there. So I'm hoping they had a clawback built into this grant. Although the way the Biden administration did things, they were just slinging money at the world at that point. Just, what else can we do? Who's going to get it? Adam from Athens says, I remember in middle school, my vice principal breaking a paddle on my tail. Wow, broke it. Okay, Adam, you still bear the scars? Too late for a lawyer, but woo, man. John, the Navy corpsman, says, our high school baseball coach was a delivery agent for the Licks. He had a baseball bat that was planed down to 1.5 inches that he did in shop class. Holy cow. He said it had 8 5/8-inch holes drilled into the surface to pepper your butt, and they were administered in groups of 5. Needless to say, he had a great batting swing. And he said it was a two-handed swing, not a wimpy doodle paddling. Holy smokes. That almost sounds a little bit like he was too into the idea. JP, over shaking his head.
I was to say, he put a lot of work into that.
But you know what? There's something to be said about the deterrent factor of knowing that coach has that paddle. You just saying.
If my football coach had did that, I'd be terrified. I'm just saying.
Listen, my dad, your granddad, he was not abusive ever, not once. But the belt would come off occasionally when I was a kid. And all it took was a couple of times. After that, all he had to do was look at me and touch his belt buckle. And I'd be like, no, Dad, no, I won't do it anymore. That's all it took. There's that deterrent factor mixed in. Mike from Arab says, I wasn't around last week when my Aggies put a whooping on Auburn. Giggle. Okay, thanks, Mike. Appreciate you. Just saying. Whatever. Mike from Athens says, what bill number was that, Phil? I don't know which one we're talking about.
Was it HB 20?
We got several.
Yeah.
So Mike from Athens, I'm not sure which one you're talking about. We had several. Let me see if I can pull up here. You had House Bill 407. You had, well, darn it. Hang on a second. Go through my stack that I just threw in the trash can because I was done with it. This happens. One of them was House Bill 7. That's the one that allowed local law enforcement to arrest or detain illegal aliens. Another one was House Bill 277. That's the one. Okay, he just said that's the one he wanted to know. All right, Mike from Athens, the one you're asking about is House Bill 7 by Representative Yarbrough. That's Yarbrough, Yarbrough. So thank you. Red from Tony, Alabama says, did you hear that 7 top executives left ActBlue? Yeah, bro. I talked about it last week. I did. I did a whole section on that. I even did a monologue. And oh, by the way, my latest podcast, which is going to come out on Wednesday, contains that. So thank you for that intro. What a segue. Speaking of latest podcasts, I should say this right now. We do a lot more than just the radio show. Rightside Media is the parent company, and Rightside Radio is only one of our productions. We also have, is it 5? 5 separate podcasts right now that are going, one of which is JP's. He has one called Off the Bench Sports.
Out of right field.
Sorry, out of right field.
You did what I did, except the opposite.
Now I'm going to get points deducted by John.
They're too similar, and
Sorry. Anyway, out of right field.
Yeah.
Darn it. Conservative policy and sports all wrapped together. That came out today.
Yeah. Yes, it did. Earlier this morning.
Yep. Saw it. Looked good. And then you're doing that in the new studio too. Looks good. And then the other one that came out last night is our Controversial Mom podcast with Emily Jones from Moms for Liberty. Hers came out last night, and she's talking about where was hers was it Christian politics? Yeah,
she did the mixing church and politics last week, and this one she talked about Trump's address to Congress.
That's right.
Giving her reaction to it.
That's right. Yeah, you ought to check them both out. They're great. My next one comes out on Wednesday. We should have another one coming out from Jared Hudson on Thursday, and then we got Birdman again on Friday doing Right Click. So, yeah, we got a lot of stuff. Check it all out. It's all at rightsidemedia.org, our website, rightsidemedia.org, where you can see all our stuff, read all our stuff, catch the live stuff, see the podcast. Oh, by the way, shop for some merchandise like T-shirts and cups and hats and things. But check it out, rightsidemedia.org. Shameful plug. Shameful. Shameless. Anyway, it's all our stuff. Adam from Athens says, the principal paddling thing again, he said the worst part was when I got home, I got it again from my dad. I don't know what you did, Adam, but it must have been a good one. Mike from Athens sends the thank you. And then John from Huntsville, JP, gets a major point deduction for that terrible sound effect. That's, see, you messed this whole sacrilege thing you've got going on right now.
I mean, it's subjective. It's great to some folks, maybe not so good to others.
You're trying to pretend that Bruce Pearl walks around yelling "Roll Tide."
I mean, he said it. That's not
you know,
AI.
What was the context? What was the context in which he said it?
Well, he said he would never say it, but then said it. So, you know.
I'm pretty sure he also said it at a time when Alabama was moving forward and Auburn was done, and so he was supporting the school in his state. Am I right in saying that?
No, he was actually saying, I will never say Roll Tide, but I just clipped the Roll Tide part of that statement and put it in the sound effect.
That's disingenuous. That's awful.
Hey, he said it. He said it.
Anyway, John from Huntsville says you get points taken off for that. He said also, I forgot to mention that apparently JP decided to change the name of his show off the bench to Out of Right. I just did it a minute ago, John, so we have to let that one go.
Yeah.
And then last one, just for hoots, Barry from Gunnersville checking in says, my principal gave us the whooping in elementary school. I remember my mother worked in the lunchroom, and the principal would call my mother down to the office, and she would tell him, whoop him. That's awful. That's funny, but it's awful. All right, listen, we're going to come back here in a minute, and I'm going to jump on into the Department of Education. There's a whole lot of stuff going on, and by the way, the teachers union is having a freak out over it. What do you mean? The Department of Education? That's where we have all our influence. We're the teachers union, don't you know? Yeah, Randy Weingarten. Oh, boy. Remember her? She has a meltdown on MSNBC. I'll play that for you, and then we'll jump on in the topic. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Like, man, giving you all the truth you can slap on a bumper sticker. All right, so this next segment, will the Department of Education die? Well, first of all, I will tell you this. Trump has issued an order that's going to make liberals' heads explode. In fact, they already are. He literally is expected to issue an executive order to abolish the education department. Now, I don't know that he can, and I say that because I believe that even though it was formed originally by executive order of President Jimmy Carter, I believe the Department of Education is still nonetheless backed up now by congressional mandate. So will they? I don't know. But then again, look at USAID. Same thing. USAID was formed by executive order, later became congressionally mandated, but now what they've done is they've taken USAID and they have folded it up underneath the State Department, so technically it still exists, but they went from 10,000 employees to 690, or 672, I think it was. And that's pretty epic. They're also cutting off 85% of the USAID spending that had been going on. As of this morning, we know that. So, yes, it is possible for the executive branch to diminish the capabilities of a department. Whether he can truly just get rid of it, I don't know. And there are some things, by the way, that the education department doesn't do. The USDA, believe it or not, is the one that handles the money for free and reduced lunches already. You've got other grants from different things around that deal with infrastructure or something else that affects schools that don't come through the Department of Education. But what you do have in the Department of Education is a lot of times agenda-driven mess that does nothing to benefit whether or not we have better educated students. You just don't. Show me how the numbers have gone up since the Department of Education was formed in D.C. Oh, that's right, you can't, because they haven't. Because this has been an epic fail. It has become the centralization of bureaucratic morass that consumes billions of dollars to feed itself and then dribbles money out to the states, but with stringers attached so the states have to do what it says. Classic example. Was it last year? Year before last. Biden administration. Remember the whole Title IX fiasco? The Title IX fiasco was Title IX, which is law since 1972. Title IX protects women and children in females in the educational arena, to include sports. Well, it says on the basis of sex. The Department of Education, under Secretary Miguel Cardona, who, by the way, his job before that was to be the head of a teachers union. Oh, really? Oh, yes. Biden brought in the head of a teachers union to be the guy who ran the Department of Education. Well, it was the Department of Education under Cardona that decided, we're going to reimagine. We believe that what Title IX says is sex, which could be including the way you identify. And suddenly, all those funds that were going out through the Department of Education for curriculum, for infrastructure, for school buses, for books, for teacher training, whatever the case may be, they had stringers attached to them saying, you have to let transgenders have more sway in your schools first. It's madness. Why do we want an activist organization like that? How about you get back to governance? Well, Randy Weingarten, I'm going to call up audio one, if you don't mind. How long is that thing, by the way? It's like 37 seconds.
27 seconds.
Yeah, okay. Randy Weingarten is the head of one of the, I think, the National Federation of Teachers. And she's a chucklehead. She's a screamer. But she went on MSNBC having a complete meltdown over the Department of Education possibly shutting down. Play that for me.
Is why so many people are so mad about it, because they're just taking opportunity away from kids that don't have it. So billionaires, kids of billionaires, they have it. They go to private schools. Everyone else, 90%, go to public schools. Don't take away their opportunity.
So let's stay on the facts.
Sorry,
no,
I'm
do
really
not
angry about this.
No, because this
I'm
is what
really
people
angry.
need to hear.
I taught kids in Clara Barton High School in Brooklyn, New York.
She's really angry about this. So much so that even the MSNBC host said, well, let's stay with the facts. because the whole idea that she was going to extrapolate that we're going to ruin the Department of Education, and so billionaires' kids will have the ability to do things, but nobody else will. It's got nothing to do with that. What she was doing there at the same time she was extolling the need for a Department of Education out of Washington, D.C., is she was also saying school choice bad. School choice bad. Why? Because it's choice. You don't want choice. Choice is not good. I thought you guys liked choice. That's only for abortion, not for school. Let's don't confuse the two. Don't conflate. Choice is like choice good here, choice bad there. That's okay. Please. How about this? No. You guys have hosed it. Teachers unions, you've hosed it. You put your own guy in there, teachers union. Cardonia, you put your own guy in there. Did Biden even know who he appointed? You put your own guy in there, and he ran it into the ground for you. And now you're freaking out because you realize most of the world didn't want that crap. We don't want by the way, the hundreds of millions, I think it was $222 million that DOJ has identified in DEI-based contracts through the Department of Education. My God. Hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars just through that one department. And then the reimagining of Title IX. And then education numbers continue to decline. And then you scream that we're somehow undoing education by getting rid of bureaucracy? How about you go get a real job instead of the $500,000 teachers union job you got right now? Even the rank and file teachers who are good folks in this world look at this and go, that makes no sense. I got more on this. Is it going to die? I'll tell you. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama and Tennessee syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, sometimes the international, and oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Welcome to hour number 3 on a Meatloaf Monday. A Meatloaf Monday. Pray tell, is there meatloaf in your future this time, JP?
Unfortunately not, but
Well,
you can't get lucky every time.
Just so you know, Pruitt's right down the road. Has
That's-
a meat and
yeah.
3. You can always call in ahead, go by, pick it up. Meatloaf Monday down there works pretty good too.
That's true. It won't hit the same as my mom's meatloaf, though.
Slathered in ketchup sauce. Slathered. It's good stuff. Yeah, I won't try to argue. Never argue with somebody who says their mom's is the best. Never
you can't.
argue.
You can't.
But Pruitt's is pretty good.
I bet it is. It's probably for a reason.
It's in fact, it's not uncommon for it to be Meatloaf Monday and they run out.
Yeah.
Just saying. That and sweet potato fluff. They got a mean sweet potato fluff.
Don't get me started on sweet potatoes.
Sweet potato fluff, man. They'll wear you out on that. All right, listen. I gotta talk about this Department of Education. So you heard the clip if you were listening last hour. Randy Weingarten, teachers union boss, National Federation of Teachers, just having a meltdown on MSNBC about the Department of Education. Well, so multiple sources. Here's one, townhall.com. President Donald J. Trump had quipped that Secretary of Education Linda McMahon might not have a job for long. It seems he's making good on that promise, reportedly drafting an executive order he's been cooking up for weeks, the abolishment of the department, and it could be landing any day now. Interesting, isn't it? Yes, it is. I mean, have you ever seen this? I did recall, by the way, there was a guy who ran for state auditor in Alabama a few years ago. He ran on the platform of elect me so I can end the position. That was quite the campaign promise. Well, Trump is actually running on the idea of doing away with departments, and he won. What does that mean? It means we like what Trump was selling, and we bought it, and that's what we want. How about this? What to know here? Newsweek has a piece. Dateline last Friday, I believe. It says this is a pre-decisional draft of the action that Trump's going to execute. He directs the newly confirmed education secretary to, quote, here's the quote, take all necessary steps to facilitate the closure of the Department of Education. All right. It goes on to say as justification, the experiment of controlling American education through federal programs and dollars has failed our children. All right. Ain't playing. That's the words. We're looking right now at a draft executive order that he has not signed yet, to my knowledge, but it is literally designed to pretty much dismantle an entire department in the U.S. government. When has that happened? Like maybe on the backside of never. I've got a piece here from the Heritage Foundation. I love the Heritage Foundation. But the Heritage Foundation issued a piece in July of last year. And the headline on this thing is, the Department of Education is making a great case for its own abolition. In other words, you're not being sent out to pasture because you're doing a great job. If the DOE was out there just like kicking it, man, we were watching kids' education standards going up. We were seeing ourselves on the world rankings going up. We were seeing, more kids coming out of high school and into the trades or into college with a reading at grade level and all of it. No, the numbers have been going down. All right. So the Heritage Organization points out that, conservatives, we've been arguing for years that the Federal Agency for Education is just, promulgating policies and doing things that just scare the pants off of you, get down to it, not doing anything to benefit education. They have been, in their words, the Heritage Foundation's words, whiffing on the key metrics for more than 40 years. It says the achievement gap between students at the highest and lowest ends of the economic scale has stayed the same for half a century. You heard Randy Weingarten earlier. It's the billionaires' kids who will get all this stuff now. And yet, with the Department of Education, we're not seeing the achievement gap closing. And they've been throwing money at it, throwing money at it, throwing money at it. Did I say throwing money at it? Throwing money at it for 40 years. Reading and math scores on average are near historical lows. Meanwhile, taxpayers spent some $200 billion on schools during the COVID-19 pandemic. Like just slinging money. On top of the more than $60 billion they already spend annually in federal school allocations. All right, you may wonder, where's all that money go? Well, there are some good things out there, and there are some things that are congressionally mandated. So these won't go away. They're appropriations. What's going to wind up having to be done now, I believe Linda McMahon is probably going to wind up reducing the size and scope of the bureaucracy. I think there's probably going to be some people in the central office looking for a new job. I think there's going to wind up being a scaling back of the overreach, if you will, the regulatory burdens that the Department of Education has been slinging at the states for years. And then it comes down to the money. What do we do with the money? What money are we talking about? Okay, how about this? One of them is called Title I. I can tell you in the state Senate, I became familiar with Title I because I knew which schools in my district were Title I and which were not. A Title I school is a school that is getting additional income from the federal government to help them with resources they can't get locally because they live in an underprivileged area. Remember that a lot of local and state taxes are what feeds education in an area. So you're going to have local taxes, whether it be sales tax or otherwise, that may be going into a education. You may have a local property ad valorem tax going into the local education. And some areas, like in Alabama, it might be a place like, say, Mountain Brook or Huntsville. In Tennessee, it might be, the growth in Chattanooga or Nashville or Franklin. And you're looking at these areas, and they got a great local economy. They're going to wind up having more money for education. So Title I administers up to $28 billion a year to schools that are on the average below a certain economic level. All right, where's that going to go? I don't know. It can be done though. USAID, look at it. Billions and billions and billions of dollars. And suddenly they just reallocated who gets to write the checks. And oh, by the way, tell you which checks are going to write. How about this? Allegedly, the Education Department also provides oversight for schools like the Office of Civil Rights. I'm saying that can go away, folded under the AG's office. Just open a department in the AG's office that handles civil rights issues. Oh, that's right, they already do. You see what's going on here? So much of what has happened has been overlap. You can take the entire civil rights oversight of the Department of Education, hand it off to the Department of Justice, and let them just open an office and do it there. Some of the employees will transfer right over because they're already government employees. They can bring them on in. Some of them are just activists. Some are pure activists looking for the DEI. Some are pure activists who have done nothing but try to enforce Obama-era rules and just crush the souls of anybody who dares to say that all lives matter. And then there's going to be oversight for the for-profit colleges. Really? Apparently. The Department of Education provides oversight when it comes to for-profit colleges. That could enable for-profits to operate with less stringent standards, which could leave them with, students with loan debt and other things that they're not, because they're not receiving an adequate education. All right, what that means is this. Certification and accreditation, I get it. Someone's got to do that. Do you devolve that to the states? Maybe so. Why not? We already have state accreditation. Maybe you go ahead and say, hey, the states are now going to compete. The free market's now going to come in. If you live in New York and you just look across the way at New Jersey does a better job of accrediting and putting together. Maybe you don't want to go to Columbia where they have activists, that are doing anti-Semitic rallies every day. Maybe you want to go across the line to the Garden State in New Jersey. Maybe you want to go to someplace in Tennessee or Alabama because they have their own state accreditation processes that are more stringent than what you have back home. Maybe, just maybe, the states can actually do it. So here's the bottom line. We don't know yet if DOE is going to DIE. What we do know is this: Trump wants it to, and so do a lot of us. As a conservative, I'm always going to be for the idea of limited government. That is not the same as me saying that there's no need for government. I am not an anarchist. I am not someone who believes that government is just, never has a place. Government has a place. Our founding fathers knew that government has a place. Jesus knew that government has a place. I've said it before. The example to me is when Jesus said, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. He didn't say, don't you give Caesar a dime because government's bad. He didn't say that. He recognized that there are places where God has allowed for authority to be stood up, and it may be for us to have to answer to it. But authorities can also abuse their position. That's why I believe that the essential services and essential provisions of government, the idea that they're going to do things like preserve life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that we're going to see the ability to provide for the common defense, establish general welfare, and all those things that government is supposed to do, like law and order, the court system. Who said that government has to be the one that provides mental health? Who is the one that said that government has to be the one that provides, education dollars only if you believe that gender identity is what's really intended by Title IX? Who said that? Nobody. Limited government weeds it back down to the idea of essential services and allows for people to have a say in their own existence without an over-regulatory burden of bureaucracy out of a centralized government in D.C. All right, listen, we're going to take some text messages when we get back. We'll take this break. We'll come right back. And then, it looks like I'm going to have time for the one that I'm going to laugh about the most, the cure for campus madness. This is going to be fun, y'all. You're going to want to hear it. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Man, saving the world one soundbite at a time. Got several text messages. Let's see what we got. Shag Nasty the Atheist has been on a text string here. Shag Nasty, what you got going on? Says Department of Education throwing money at everything except teacher salaries. You get what you pay for. Yeah, Shag Nasty, go back and look. Because even in Alabama, I can tell you that teachers have had a pay raise almost every year for the last 10 years. And, oh, by the way, we also, while I was in office, we reinstituted the National Board Certified Teacher Stipend that the Democrats had chosen not to, which is an extra $5,000 a year if they'll choose to get nationally board certified. How about that? Funny how that works when you find truth. Shag Nasty. By the way, he says, sorry, white Christian men. What does that mean?
We said a government just big enough to keep white men on top. Sorry, white Christian men on top.
Okay. A government small enough to ban climate science. Shag Nasty, you're welcome to call in sometime if you want to try to actually have a debate. Don't think it'll work out well. TC from Priceville says, been saying it for years, Phil. It makes 0 sense for all 50 states to send all their tax revenue that's been earmarked for education to D.C. just to have the DOA trickle it back to those states with woke strings attached. Yeah, after they deduct their portion too, by the way. Said so much easier to keep that tax money in the states. Who knows exactly what they need to spend it in? DOE needs a DIE. TC from Priceville speaking. Got a brand spanking new texter. It's CJ from Huntsville. CJ, we're glad you're on board. He says, returning to the office soon at one of the offices out on Redstone. I won't say which one. He says, returning to one of the offices soon. We need some great bumper music. Was that last? Oh, that was last week's text. Okay. Mm-hmm. And we're just now getting his name. Got it. Anyway, hey, CJ, hope you're back in the office. And yeah, good on you. And then he says, administer the senior graduation exams to all teachers and fire the ones that flunk.
Yep.
That would be funny.
That would be, that's certainly an idea. I wonder how many would flunk. That's the real question.
You know, I can't think of many jobs where you're allowed to just not have to keep up with the standards.
Yeah. I mean, maybe the football coach that's forced to teach history or something.
Yeah. And you know, lawyers who have to take mandatory continuing ed every year and all of it. So, and they do too. Teachers do too. They go to continuing ed in services and seminars and teacher training days, and I know they do. So I'm not saying they don't. But I'd never thought about having them take the same test they have to administer to seniors.
That'd be interesting.
Woo! Ken from Decatur says, I'll never forget 50 plus years ago when I was in second grade, this one kid that was constantly in trouble until the day his mom came to the school and paddled him in front of the entire class. Oh my gosh. I don't remember any other trouble from him after that. I understand why there was no trouble from him, but I cannot help but think he walked away with some emotional scars, just saying. I'm not sure that one ranks up high with me as something I'd like to see happen. Mike from Florence. Is there a legit concern or argument if the state takes control of schools that there's not enough money, or is that hearsay? So right now, I'll say this. I have a family member that did a deep dive study for a conservative think tank on the amount of dependency the state of Alabama alone has on federal dollars. And it was everything. It was roads and bridges, it was court systems, it was, law enforcement grants, and it was certainly education. It's amazing how much money flows into just any one state, Alabama included, that is federal in its origin. And it's not all about what the state sends to them. It's tax dollars that they already have and debt that they've incurred in D.C. They reallocate it, appropriate it, and say, let's send this much back to the states. And then the Department of Education takes their big old chunk. But hey, the bottom line is this. To answer your question, Mike from Florence, there would be pain. There would. Because you have an enormous amount of dependency now. It's like a drug addict. They're used to getting money from the federal sources. And when suddenly free and reduced lunch money went away, that would be tough. That would be very tough. When suddenly the grants to buy new school buses went away, that'd be tough. When suddenly you had fewer curriculum grants for them to buy new school books or Chromebooks or whatever they use, that would be tough. The problem we've had is those monies tend to come in with these big liberal stringers attached to it, or regulatory stringers at the very least, and it sometimes becomes more problematic than it's worth. I'm a member of the Church of the Highlands, And one of the most outstanding Christian colleges that's been started in the last decade is Highlands College out of Birmingham. It's a multi-million-dollar facility with close to 1,000 students. It's fully accredited. It's outstanding and dynamic, and they are one of the few colleges in the nation that refuses to take any federal dollars for anything because they always come with stringers. So, to your point, could we afford schools? We probably couldn't afford schools the way we do them now. We'd have to do something different at the state level. Or, how about this? They centralize things down, whittle out all the bloated bureaucracy, and just send the monies that they've appropriated back to the states to administer on their own, and we'll do it. And I'm pretty sure that would work.
By the way, we had a comment on the YouTube live stream from Lonnie Varner. He said, as an old teacher in North Alabama would say when people complained, quote, you can't give them what God didn't give them, and that includes money.
Huh. Okay, cool. Danny from Pinhook says somebody ought to check the average IQ test of the U.S. high school students compared to other countries for the Department of Education and since. Whoo! I don't think you want to do that, Danny. I don't think it'd work out. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. Goes from Huntsville back over to Chattanooga and from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. I'm talking about all the way down to that prettiest little town on the plains called Auburn, stretching across to good old Fort Benning. Yes, I called it Fort Benning, Georgia. And then even big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. All right, listening audience, I got Dipper number 3 here in the final moments of Meatloaf Monday. So we're going to get you all the way to go home time, but let me just tell you, this one is one of those, this is what we voted for, bills or moments. This is what we voted for. I mean, how many times leading up to last year's election did we find ourselves thinking, I hope if Trump gets elected, he does... I mean, think about it. How many times did that happen in your mind? How many times did it happen with you and your friends? How many times did it happen when you were having those water cooler conversations? Man, I'm telling you what, I read that story and God, if we can get Trump elected, I hope he does, name it, fill in the blank. I mean, just go ahead and make that a meme. We could just do that. We could do it every day. If Trump got elected, you hope he did. And right now, what we're seeing is pretty much what we voted for, right? JP, you're nodding your head.
Pretty much.
Pretty much.
I can't think of many things he hasn't at least done, started to do that I wanted him to do when he came into office.
You know, one of the key indicators of that would be, I have not had to use the jackassery sound effect in quite a while.
Nope. You've not. I mean, we may have to just put the button on hold for 4 years, it seems. Unless the left is doing something, obviously.
Well, there is that. But one of the places where I find there to be just karma. Karma, baby. Karma. Karma in the whole, if Trump gets elected, I hope he deals with campus madness. You know what I got so sick of? Is seeing protests on campus. Did you see anybody, because it was during the time frame you were at Alabama, did you see any protests on campus? We had a few here in Alabama. I thought they had some at Tuscaloosa.
So that the big one started after I was gone. Like the pro-Palestinian movement was after I was out. Okay. But while I was there were
Black Lives Matter and stuff like that.
There was somebody came. Those movements like Turning Point. He may have been with Turning Point. Sets up a table and does like a debate me thing.
Oh yeah.
One of those got really hostile at Alabama. I remember
that.
It happened in the little student center square. So that happened while I was there. But no, I was not there during the whole pro-Palestinian stuff. No.
Well, the pro-Palestinian thing got to the point that I was like to the point that I would want to throw something at my TV. It was that bad. And it was always these young skulls full of mush who would wrap their faces in a keffiyeh like they were some kind of, Hamas terrorist and feel good about themselves saying, from the river to the sea. And they don't even know what that means.
That literally means just blow Israel off the face of the earth.
That's exactly what it means. And then at the same time, they were influenced by people who did know what it meant and were enjoying having these manipulative kids they could play with. Whole campuses got taken over. Whole buildings got wrecked. And one of the most aggravating things was it wasn't just calling for intifada, which they did, and flying Palestinian flags on our flagpoles, which they did. It was also threatening and harassing of Jewish students, which happened way too often, like way too often. And perhaps there were any number of these college campuses where this was happening, but perhaps the epicenter of it all was Columbia University, the much vaunted Ivy League Columbia University in downtown New York, not far from Ground Zero, really. Columbia University became this just petri dish of activism. I've got a piece here. I went back in the archives, Daily Wire from April of last year, April 30th, when calls were mounting for Columbia University President Nimat Mashoush Shafiq calling for the Columbia University president named Nimat Mashouz Shafiq to resign. As anti-Israel protests were escalating over and over again, students taking over Hamilton Hall on the university's campus, classes for the semester ending early, and then most notably, you had protesters that were harassing Jewish students. And the president of the university was seemingly doing nothing. And there were plenty of calls for her to resign. Plenty. She had to come testify for Congress, did not do a great job, tried to own up to it, but just couldn't quite get there. So if Trump gets elected, man, I hope he cracks down on campus madness. New York Post, last Friday. President Trump keeps up the crackdown on campus anti-Semites. You may recall that one of the things he did on the 46th day of his administration was to say that he was strongly considering imposing sanctions and tariffs against Russia, yada, yada, yada. And, oh, by the way, that he was going to deal with crackdowns on campus. He was not going to allow campuses to be radicalized, including professors. Sometimes professors were out there doing the protesting, rallying students. Why is that not child abuse? So he had the State Department begin working on what it would take to cancel aid to college campuses in which anti-Semitism was rampant and protests against the United States and against our ally Israel were rampant. And what did he decide to do? Wait for it. Hang on. Brace yourselves. He actually did it. On Friday of last week, he canceled $400 million in federal grants and contracts to Columbia University. Can I have some applause, please? I think that's worthy. This is hilarious. This is such karma. $400 million. Now, by the way, why were they getting $400 million taxpayer dollars? Some of these are allegedly contracts. Contracts for what? I don't know. Some were grants, I'm sure. Yes, they were. It says grants. With research, what? DEI? Who knows? But they failed to address rampant anti-Semitism at their Manhattan campus, and they lost a whole bunch of money. A whole bunch of money. Oh, darn. And guess what? The penalty could continue to grow. I just say, right now, Trump ain't playing. Now, are they going to lawyer up at Columbia? Sure. I suspect they are. But are they going to win? Not for a long time.
Remind me, was it Columbia's president or Harvard's president that when they were testifying to Congress said that it mattered in context whether a student would be punished?
That was Harvard.
Harvard.
No, that may have been Penn.
Penn, that's what it was.
Penn.
Yes.
Yeah, it was Penn.
She did end up resigning, but I get transported back in my mind to that time of them, trying to excuse the behaviors of the students, and it's like, it's really simple just to say you don't support it.
You know what's interesting? She didn't resign.
Or she was fired.
She stepped down. And she now is a tenured professor making her full salary and with the title of former president of the university. And somebody else came in and just took her role.
I'm curious what context anti-Semitism is okay, though.
None. None. If your worldview is reasonable and compassionate, it's none. There is none. It's interesting to note that soon after the loss of their $400 million by the Trump administration, the Columbia University announced, according to Fox News, that same day, they were appearing to be ready and willing to work with President Trump and his administration. The university's interim president, Katrina Armstrong, issued a letter on Friday in response to the Trump administration's cutting of $400 million in grants and contracts, saying that they will immediately impact research and other critical functions, but she does not dismiss the Trump administration's claims, takes it very seriously, and says that when she accepted the role that as president, she knew Columbia needed a reset. You think? Didn't do it fast enough, did you? She took over in August of 2024. They've been protesting as recently as this week. So I don't know what exactly she was waiting on, but I'm just saying $400 million, that's got to sting. I mean, that's like a super ouch. Well, it gets better. Hey, JP, did you hear what happened to the Palestinian leader on campus?
I did.
How do you feel about this?
I feel like it's karma.
So, How about this? It didn't just stop at the money. It turns out that it didn't take long to find out that a guy named Mahmoud Khalil, the Columbia University apartheid divest leader, the anti-Israel activist, the student who's here on a green card, turns out that he's been the central figure in organizing the vast majority of protests and building takeovers on Columbia, to include when they set up the big tent, what they call that Occupy Zone. Mahmoud is now in Louisiana. Why? Because he's in detention and now he's in a federal ICE facility in Louisiana. They came and got him off campus this weekend. And basically they said, because Trump said, it's not just your money. It's not just your money, liberal universities. It's not just your money. Oh, no. If you're allowing students to do this, understand, if they're here as, first of all, any federal grants or scholarships those students have will be gone. And then, oh, by the way, if they're here as a foreign student on a student visa, their visa will be revoked and they will be sent home. Mahmoud Khalil is headed to the House. Go explain that to Mama and Papa.
I love to the post that the White House put out. It said, "Shalom, Mahmoud."
It did. Did it? You got that on your screen somewhere?
I can pull it back up, yes.
So they literally, what they do, they post his picture?
It was his face, and it just said Shalom Mahmoud on it.
Shalom Mahmoud. Okay, yeah. So actually what's interesting is Mahmoud actually graduated a few months ago. He got his undergraduate degree in Beirut, but he came over here and he got his master's degree at Columbia. But he was still living on campus. Why was he still there? I mean, he's graduated but anyway, almost every time you look at a picture of Columbia protesters, you're going to wind up seeing his picture. And he was one of the few who would not wear a mask. He was very proud of it. He was a central figure. What you got?
Well, I was just going to say, I've seen a lot of people claiming that this is like, obviously there's a sector of both parties really, but mainly the left, of claiming that everything we do is for Israel and Israel really is running our country and its decisions, and claiming that this is an example. I hope they remember, or they are able to remember, that Hamas chants death to America as well.
Oh,
like
yeah.
it's not just America. Like there is Israeli and American flags burning. So this is very much a national security move, because we got somebody who is chanting and supporting a group that chants death to America. It's probably not smart to have somebody like that in our nation. That's just me.
Probably not. Like, why do we want them? You're here taking advantage of everything we have to offer and decrying who we are and actually disrupting people. And, oh, by the way, violating the law by, jeopardizing the safety and well-being of Jewish students. As agents raided Khalil's apartment, where's this from? This is from New York Post. As agents raided Khalil's apartment, Columbia College, the university, put out a statement addressing the presence of agents in the vicinity of campus, stating its intention not to cooperate with ICE's actions except where required by law. How about they're always required by law? There's no place under the law where you're not required to cooperate. If they bring in a warrant and they're on your campus, guess what? You have to cooperate. Consistent with our long-standing practice and the practice of cities and institutions throughout the country, law enforcement must have a judicial warrant. Well, they did. So, what's your point? Columbia is committed to complying with all legal obligations supporting our student body and campus community. That's about the most worthless say-nothing statement I've ever heard. How about this? Columbia University is really glad he's gone. They could have done that. Just been done with it. Soon after his detention, Khalil's supporters issued a press release calling the arrest a racist targeting. Well, of course they did. Which serves to instill fear in pro-Palestine activities or activists, as well as a warning to others. You think? I think that's kind of the point, fellas. At least you nailed that one. You can't do this. This is designed to instill fear in pro-Palestinian activists and warn others. Yeah, it's exactly what it's doing. This is not just a shot across the bow. This is a double tap. This is rounds on target. This is called taking that one out, and oh, by the way, the rest of them know not to be anywhere near the blast zone. Just saying. By the way, last September, Khalil and the Columbia United Apartheid Divest Movement, which has vowed to escalate its tactics until the empire crumbles, they say, were among those taking part in the campus takeovers. The coalition of 116 student groups at the Ivy League school who call themselves Westerners fighting for the total eradication of Western civilization also led the charge in the violent raid of Columbia's Hamilton Hall. It got so bad that even Governor Kathy Hochul had to condemn it finally. Anyway, Khalil, shalom, baby, shalom. Karma has been served.
By the way, I got that picture right. If you want to put it on the stream as we go to break.
You know what?
Mahmoud.
Slap that thing on the stream and let everybody see Mahmoud being told shalom, baby, by the Trump administration. We're headed to a break. We'll come right back, get some text messages, and wrap it up for the day. You guys are an amazing audience. You've kept me hopping. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower using that bulletproof influence. Hey, grades are in. John from Huntsville says JP gets an A- for his just okay performance. Ernie Yarbrough gets an A+ for his spectacular performance, which means today's winner is obviously Phil with an A++. However, if JP can say War Eagle, he'll earn 50 extra credit points and beat today's winner and most likely increase his chances of getting a date with one of so many of the many Auburn sorority girls groupies that he has.
Not going to happen.
Oh, my gosh. You may have just lost more points. Hey, let me go to the phones. Jeff Rowe from Indiana. Hey, buddy, we missed you. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good today.
Yeah, man.
Just running way behind. I'm just now leaving the yard here in Alabama.
Holy smokes. Well, so you got a new grandbaby, and Miss Carolyn's doing better too, right?
Yep, we got a new grandbaby, and she's doing good. She was delivered a little early because the mother had a little bit of liver trouble there. So,
wow.
But everything's fine. So.
And Maisie, is that her name?
Maisie, yep.
That's awesome.
It.
And Miss Carolyn doing good?
She's doing real well and everything. Just got too many irons in the fire and trying to keep all the other grandkids and everything else while she's down at the hospital with her.
That's a job, man. That is absolutely a job.
Handful, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what do you think about all this stuff we talked about today, especially the stuff about, I got about a minute and a half here with Mahmoud from the Columbia University.
Oh, yeah. What I was going to say, though, is about the teachers and everything.
Oh, okay. What?
You can't blame all this stuff on teachers' unions and stuff. It's the administrations and everything that's dropping the ball here, because they're signing contracts to where that these teachers can get away with murder and not have to, basically can't be fired. Well, next to the contract negotiations, there needs to be put in there where give you 3 strikes. First time's a verbal, second time's a written, and third time you're gone.
I would agree. I mean, they make it almost impossible. And now, good teachers sometimes also get shafted by bad teachers who have tenure. I've seen that happen. But you're right, man. There needs to be they need to be able to get rid of bad teachers quicker.
Well, yeah, when they go to the contract negotiations, there should be in the clause and everything that if you're not up to, if you're these purple-haired teachers trying to teach diversity and stuff in the classroom, and then they keep doing it, and just say, "Well, I'm sorry, but we can't get rid of them because they're union." But, so
hey, listen, brother,
they got to go.
The music's already playing, man. I can't believe it, but I am glad for you. I'm glad the news you got. Blessings on your household. You have a great day, buddy.
Have you good one, Phil.
See you, man. Hey, all of y'all out there, thank you. We love this audience. Don't forget there's more of us than there are of them. God is still on his throne. Stay in the fight. We'll see you tomorrow.